May 19, 2025, Chengdu, China. A conference center thrums with excitement. Thousands assemble to observe what numerous Silicon Valley minds considered technically unattainable. A personal computing device functioning with absolute independence from Windows, Google, or any trace of American Software Foundation. The venue descends into quiet stillness. Overhead illumination starts its gradual dimming. Huawei leadership walks onto the platform and unveil the MateBook Pro valued at 7,999 yuan, approximately 100. Then arrives the instant that elicits audience astonishment. The MateBook Fold Ultimate Edition appears, an 18-in bendable OLED notebook with a cost of $23,999, roughly $3,228. Both machines surge with capability from Huawei's Kirin X90 chipset. Both run solely on Harmony OS 5, an operating platform that arose not from choice, but from requirement. 5 years of relentless development. Beyond 10,000 programmers offering their skills safeguarded by 2,700 patents. This instant signifies far more than a device introduction. This is China declaring its total technological autonomy from the behemoths of Silicon Valley, and the proof indicates this isn't simply ceremonial performance. It's authentically working. Rewind to 2019. When American commercial limitations severed Huawei's link to Android and Windows, virtually every tech analyst predicted the firm's rapid downfall. Industry opinions were uniform and assured. A prominent Silicon Valley investment leader declared, "They won't last beyond 2 years." Another affirmed without doubt, "No enterprise can persist without Google's framework." They were catastrophically, magnificently wrong. The statistics that communicate the actual narrative. Part 1. When figures expose transformation, market data illustrate a scenario that would have seemed like absolute fiction just 24 months earlier. Throughout the fourth quarter of 2024, Harmony OS captures 19% of China's mobile ecosystem, formally surpassing Apple's iOS, which held 17%. Android still controlled the terrain with 64%, but the forward trajectory was undeniable. By the second quarter of 2025, Harmony OS maintained a 17% market stance, persistently exceeding iOS for 6 consecutive quarters. On the international front, Harmony OS secures 4% of the universal market. That figure might seem modest until you acknowledge this platform scarcely existed in viable form before 2019. Within China's territories, it's currently the second biggest mobile operating platform, and now it's pursuing the personal computing domain, where Windows controls 80.18% of Chinese PCs as of the first quarter of 2025. Development that earns admiration. Part 2. Components that rival international benchmarks. The components themselves warrant recognition, even when evaluated against worldwide competition. The MateBook Pro weighs merely 970 green, lighter than Apple's MacBook Air. Nevertheless, it produces a 14.2-inch OLED screen with 3.1K resolution, 120 Hz refresh abilities, and maximum brightness, achieving 1,000 nits. The body measures just 13.5 mm in depth. Setup choices reach 32 GB of RAM and 2 TB of solid-state memory. The 70-watt battery offers 10.2 hours of practical usage backed by 140-watt quick charging that restores power levels with exceptional velocity. But the authentic technical triumph comes with the MateBook Fold Ultimate Edition. Completely opened, it displays an 18-inch 3.3K OLED panel with maximum brightness touching 1,600 nits. Luminous enough for pleasant outdoor viewing in direct sunshine. Collapsed, it transforms into a compact 13-inch device measuring only 7.3 mm thick, weighing 1.16 kg. The magnetic input contributes just 290 grams and 5 mm to total measurements. Huawei has successfully dissolved the century-old trade-off between display territory and mobility through development that authentically feels like it originates from tomorrow, the platform they claimed would collapse. Part 3. An operating platform constructed from absolute zero. Harmony OS 5 isn't some rapidly assembled contingency solution created under duress. This constitutes a total structural reconception from its base. The corporation characterizes it as employing a microkernel design. Huawei asserts this framework exhibits 1/1000th the attack weakness surface compared to Windows, signifying substantially fewer access points for malicious threats. Whether this claim endures real-world security examination remains to be confirmed, but the core design differs radically from traditional operating platforms. Performance measurements are impressive. The platform boots 32% quicker than Windows 11 on similar components. It uses 29% less memory during concurrent application usage. Evaluation performed by the China Software Testing Center shows that a 1 gigabyte PowerPoint document opens in roughly 1 second compared to 3 to 5 seconds on Windows executing comparable components. The system accommodates over 1,100 external devices. It includes the Xiaowei AI companion driven by Huawei's Pangu large language algorithms. Xiaowei can build presentation structures from nothing, convert text embedded within pictures immediately, compress 2-hour gatherings into thorough overviews within moments, and handle system-level mechanization through natural speech commands like alter pointer shade or divide files. Equipment fusion that transforms everything. Part 4. Groundbreaking multi-device design. The multi-device fusion is where Harmony OS becomes authentically transformative, achieving something neither Windows nor Mac OS has effectively matched despite generations of efforts. Through Huawei's shared framework, operators can move documents directly from mobile devices to notebooks without wires or cloud mediators. You can redirect your mobile's lens to your PC during video conferences with a single touch. You can utilize one input and pointer to concurrently manage your PC, slate, and mobile. The platform recognizes facial position and tracks your sight, shifting the pointer fluidly across numerous devices. As of the first quarter of 2025, beyond 230 million devices have linked using this superdevice structure. Documents shift immediately between components. Mobile conversations transfer without disruption. Displays stretch wirelessly to build engaging digital environments that make Windows' method to equipment connectivity seem stagnant. In 2010, a previous Google leader speaking under confidentiality admitted, "We invested years persuading ourselves that isolated gardens were a characteristic and advantage to operators." Huawei illustrated, "You don't need barriers whatsoever if you design everything from conception with fusion as the primary principle rather than an afterthought." The Software Obstacle Part 5. The Application Environment Challenge and its Resolution. Now let's address the enormous barrier that everyone maintained would demolish Harmony OS before it obtained traction: the software environment. At introduction in May 2025, Harmony OS for PC accommodated over 1,000 programs, featuring 150 native PC programs particularly refined for the system. By September 2025, that number had expanded to more than 8,000 applications. By November 2025, the Harmony OS PC environment achieved over 10,000 desktop programs. Significant Chinese services are completely refined and extensively incorporated. WPS Office entirely reconstructed from 40 million code lines, particularly for Harmony OS. WeChat, QQQ, Bilibili, Douyin, DingTalk, QQ Music, Xiaohongshu, and ZWKD all function natively. WPS Office alone conquered more than 500 technical barriers during transition and launched capabilities like dual display presenter format and single-click AI created slides engineered particularly for the MateBook Fold. But here's where reality, provides its severe evaluation. Adobe Creative Suite stays unavailable. Microsoft Office won't execute. Zoom, AutoCAD, MATLAB, and most global enterprise programs cannot be deployed. Windows accommodates over 660,000 programs gathered across 3 generations of market dominance. For Chinese operators performing standard workflow activities, file editing, calculations, slideshows, messaging, content viewing, Harmony OS PC is entirely workable for global corporations, creative specialists reliant on Adobe's framework, technicians employing specialized programs, or anyone whose process demands Windows-exclusive programs. Harmony OS simply isn't a practical choice yet. That yet is the essential term, because 900 million devices are currently functioning on a platform that didn't exist half a generation ago. And the direction suggests this is simply the initial phase. When limitations generate surprising outcomes. Part 6. The Controls That Misfired. To grasp how we reached here, you must comprehend what occurred in May 2019. The Trump government deployed what analysts labeled as the ultimate weapon against Huawei. Instantly, the enterprise lost connection to Google's Android operating platform and all related functions. No Gmail, no YouTube, no Google Maps, no Play Store, nothing. Tech commentators internationally wrote Huawei's business farewell with total conviction. The reasoning seemed watertight. How do you sell mobile devices in territories where buyers require Google functions? How do you convince programmers to develop applications for a system with 0 operators? How do you challenge against frameworks with generations of advancement and billions in foundation capital? What transpired defied every prediction, broke every belief about tech market forces, and revealed something crucial about what happens when you compel a corporation and an entire country into a position with no options. In 2024 alone, Huawei's income climbed past 860 billion yuan, over 118 billion, showing a 22% rise from the prior year. This wasn't restoration. This was the firm's quickest expansion pace in nearly a generation. In China's mobile market, Huawei soared from fourth spot to second, with deliveries exploding by 37%. Meanwhile, Apple's transactions in the same territory dropped 17% during the matching timeframe. The Mate 60 Pro Mobile became the emblem of this shift. When it debuted in 2023, Western authorities were authentically amazed. Despite controls particularly designed to prevent connection to sophisticated chip-making capability, Huawei had somehow produced a mobile with 5G-like velocities using their domestically created Kirin 9000's chipset. Transactions erupted so quickly that vendors just couldn't sustain stock. Young Chinese workers began labeling it the Patriot Mobile, a device demonstrating China didn't need Western capability to advance at the leading boundary. Dr. Chen Yi, a senior designer who participated in Harmony OS creation, clarified the conceptual transformation. We posed ourselves a straightforward inquiry. If we could redesign portable computing from the foundation up, understanding everything we grasp today about how individuals actually employ devices, what would we construct? The response wasn't Android with Chinese attributes. The response was something essentially distinct. The energy truly intensified with the Mate 70 collection. These aren't simply mobiles. They're illustrations of what becomes possible when a corporation is forced to reimagine everything without the constraints of current frameworks and permission structures. The gadgets include a 100-watt quick charging ready to revive a totally drained battery in moments, not hours. Bendable displays that feel authentically enchanting rather than delicate trials. AI functions that make Siri seem like a speech recognition sample from 2010. And here's what authentically disturbs the sector. These mobiles regularly cost less than similar Google Pixel or Samsung gadgets, despite including comparable or even better specifications. In November 2025, Huawei introduced the Mate 70 Air with a beginning cost of 4,099 yuan, roughly $580. The gadget measures an impossibly narrow 6.6 millimeter, securing it the recognition of being the slimmest flagship in the complete Mate collection chronicle. What's more exceptional, Huawei succeeded to incorporate a substantial 6,500 mAh silicon carbon battery into this ultra-narrow configuration battery capability that most producers claimed wasn't prepared for commercial launch. The structure employs aerospace-quality titanium blend, reflecting Apple's recent iPhone Pro variants, but at literally half the expense. The panel extends a substantial 7 in, delivering visual territory that actually surpasses the iPhone 16 Pro Max's 6.9 in panel and the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra's 6.8 in display. The software condition tells another exceptional account that honestly just opposes traditional understanding about system frameworks. When Google Play became unreachable, doubters anticipated operators would abandon Huawei mobiles en masse. Market observers released thorough analyses clarifying why no substitute application repository could conceivably challenge Google's generation of framework development. Instead, Huawei's application collection now assists 580 million monthly engaged operators. Significant programmers are competing to guarantee their programs operate flawlessly on Harmony OS, with over 50 AI-driven programs currently extensively incorporated into the platform. And here's why. Huawei's income distribution arrangement is more favorable than what Apple or Google presents, and the sector is simply too massive to disregard. When you have hundreds of millions of engaged operators in the globe's second biggest economy, you refine for that system regardless of international tensions. Beyond mobile devices, the larger approach really becomes apparent. But Huawei didn't halt at mobile devices and notebooks. Their approach, honestly, reaches far beyond what most Western analysts acknowledge. The cloud infrastructure and AI foundation is where things become authentically fascinating from an international perspective. Huawei presented their Pangu 5.5 AI algorithms, engineered particularly for healthcare, banking, and production. These are specialized implementations, not just universal buyer chatbots. Their Cloud Matrix Foundation deploys 384 Ascend neural calculation chips, all functioning together in synchronized, simultaneous operation. This arrangement competes anything from Google Cloud or Amazon Web Services in terms of pure calculation ability. Companies across Asia are progressively choosing Huawei's cloud functions over Western options for one clear reason: the information stays within their boundaries. For enterprises worried about U.S. administration monitoring, abrupt controls that could disconnect connection to essential foundation, or governmental choices that might render their information unreachable instantly, Huawei presents something Google essentially cannot deliver: autonomy from American governmental and legal authority. This matters more than most individuals comprehend. When the U.S. administration can force American cloud suppliers to release information or end assistance to particular buyers based on international strategy choices, independence-mindful companies have valid reasons to seek options. Huawei isn't simply challenging on capabilities and cost. They're challenging on international assurance. The battery vehicle transformation is the account that honestly not enough individuals are noticing. While Tesla controlled global attention and Western press reporting, Huawei silently became the technical intelligence behind China's battery vehicle transformation. Their intelligent vehicle solutions now energize automobiles from numerous producers, everything from self-driving platforms to multimedia systems. The IDO M9, constructed with Huawei's capability collection, sold 160,000 units in its initial year, exceeding many recognized premium labels, even though it's a first-generation offering from a comparatively unknown vehicle label. During a showcase in Shenzhen in late 2024, a Huawei-energized automobile effectively maneuvered complex metropolitan traffic, managed unguarded left rotations across numerous pathways, and reverse-positioned in a confined location, all without human guidance. The platform analyzed information from 11 lenses, 6mm wave sensors, and 3 LiDAR components in actual time, executing choices that would test even skilled human operators. Now let's discuss the processor that transforms computing permanently. We really need to address what occurred in October 2025 because this is where the story stops being about one firm's strength and starts being about a core transformation in computing itself. A study group at Peking University released something in Nature Electronics that honestly made every processor technician in Silicon Valley pause and gaze in astonishment. They constructed an analog calculation processor using resistive random access storage that handles operations 1,000 times quicker than NVIDIA's H100 GPU while using 100 times less energy. And here's the aspect that makes this authentically transformative. They constructed it using older 7-nanometer production capability that the United States never considered to control because everyone presumed it was too basic to matter for leading-edge implementations. Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, actually anticipated this development. At the Financial Times AI Summit in London, just weeks before the document's release, he stood on platform and stated something nobody anticipated to hear from the individual who constructed a $3 trillion empire selling GPUs to energize AI creation worldwide. He stated, "China is going to dominate the AI competition. Not might dominate, will dominate." When the individual who literally energizes almost every significant AI algorithm deployed today tells you his own capability is nearing obsolescence, you need to pay very careful recognition. Why digital calculation may be outdated. Let me clarify what just occurred, because honestly, this transforms everything we thought we understood about the material boundaries of operation. For the past century, we've been calculating in a essentially wasteful manner. Every computing device you've ever employed, every mobile device, every entertainment system, every information facility executing ChatGPT functions on digital calculation foundations. Data gets separated into ones and zeros, binary conditions that are either on or off with nothing between. Your chipset executes operations in one material position, while your information sits in storage somewhere else, often centimeters or even meters distant. Every single task requires information to journey back and forth between these two distinct positions. This is labeled the von Neumann limitation, titled after the mathematician who engineered this design way back in the 1940s. It's why your notebook warms up when executing demanding programs. It's why instructing a large AI algorithm can use more electricity than a small community employs in a complete month. It's why Jensen Huang stated at that London conference, particularly in the last 6 months, requirement for calculation has risen considerably because AI evolved from simple one-shot responses to these reasoning and thinking AI platforms. The outcomes are so impressive, but the operational expense is overwhelming. The abandoned option. Before digital calculation controlled everything, technicians experimented broadly with analog computing devices. Instead of ones and zeros, analog devices employed continuous electrical impulses that could symbolize unlimited quantities between on and off. Think of an illumination adjuster instead of an illumination button for particular varieties of mathematics, especially the variety participating in representing actual universe physics or resolving differential formulas. Analog computing devices were actually quicker than early digital devices, but they had one critical weakness that ultimately terminated the capability. They couldn't sustain exactness. Electrical interference, heat fluctuations, and impulse deviation meant that an operation starting out precise would gradually decline into nonsense. Digital calculation dominated because it was steady, foreseeable, and dependable. A transistor is either transmitting electricity or it isn't. No uncertainty, no deviation, no gathered mistake over duration. That exactness challenge is exactly what Chinese investigators just resolved. The answer that transforms everything. Their processor employs resistive random access storage cells that preserve data as distinct resistance degrees. Higher resistance signifies less electrical flow passes through. Lower resistance signifies more flow passes. Each tiny storage cell can contain not just two conditions like digital storage, but hundreds of distinct resistance quantities, establishing what's basically analog retention with digital degree exactness. When you need to execute an operation, the processor doesn't shift information anywhere. The storage cell itself transforms into the calculator. Flow passes through these cells, and the resistance establishes the result. Thousands of operations occur concurrently in the precise same material location where the information exists. There's no limitation because there's no division between storage and calculating. The Peking University Group accomplished what they label 5 orders of scale advancement in analog exactness. That's 100,000 times more precise than any analog computing device ever constructed. They examined it on matrix formula resolution, the mathematical base of instructing neural systems, and the outcomes are authentically overwhelming. 1,000 times the capacity of an NVIDIA H100, 100 times superior power productivity, and precision identical to 24-bit fixed-point digital platforms. This isn't theoretical laboratory science that might be commercialized in a generation. They produced this processor using commercial manufacturing methods that exist right now in Chinese production installations. It's actual, it's operating, and it's currently being expanded for manufacturing. How controls speed up advancement? Here's where the international politics becomes intriguing in a manner that should honestly worry strategists in Washington. Since 2022, the United States has been methodically preventing China from acquiring sophisticated GPUs. No H100s, no A100s. The complete control approach was constructed on one central belief. Without connection to leading-edge American processors, China couldn't maintain speed in artificial intelligence creation. But controls have a pattern to misfire in surprising manners. When you disconnect someone from capability, you don't make them surrender. You don't compel them to acknowledge loss. You make them create around you. You eliminate the choice of acquiring answers, leaving only the choice of building them. Look at what occurred with Huawei particularly. The US administration positioned them on the organization roster in 2019, disconnecting connection to American providers across the spectrum. Every observer anticipated the enterprise would fail. Instead, Huawei created their own operating platform, produced their own processors, despite lacking connection to the most sophisticated manufacturing apparatus, and actually expanded their international market portion in Telecommunications Foundation. The same sequence is occurring right now, but at a much bigger magnitude across China's complete capability domain. While American enterprises invested billions refining digital GPU design, making transistors smaller, processor velocities quicker, storage bandwidth broader, Chinese investigators posed a totally distinct inquiry. What if the core design is incorrect? What if instead of making von Neumann devices quicker, we need to construct something completely distinct? That inquiry led to analog calculation with digital exactness. It led to processors that are 1,000 times quicker and 100 times more productive than the components they're prevented from acquiring. The controls didn't halt Chinese AI creation. They redirected it toward methods that might actually be better to what everyone else is following.